Hello everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Decode with Shyam Sekhar. Today we have another important topic for discussion, and it's all about SIPs. Are we actually doing our SIPs right? Let's dive in and check with the man himself. Hi Shyam.
Hi. So SIP is a very important topic. It is a methodology which can help any investor deploy capital in the equity market. It helps you put smaller sums of money at regular intervals. As your income grows, you are able to scale up what you're going to invest in equities. There's a wide choice of funds into which you can do SIP. Earlier, it was not so. 2 decades ago, there were barely 4 or 5 funds which are attracting and cornering all the SIP. Today, at least 100, 150 funds are getting good share of SIP. So the choice is very vast. But when you have such a vast choice, what matters is, where is your SIP going? Is it going into the right fund?
Correct.
Is the money going in the right proportion into the right funds? Is there a concentration risk in your SIP? Are you having enough diversity in your fund choices? Do your SIP fund choices give you the required stability for your overall equity portfolio? These are some of the important questions that need to be raised now more than ever before because of the kind of choice you have in doing your SIP. And when I look at where the SIP monies have been going in the last 2 years, I get anxiety seeing that, for the simple reason that if you look at the overall 32,000 crore book, I believe that at least 50% of this book is not going into the right places.
Okay.
It can be better. Why is it going into the wrong places? It's going into the wrong places because of the recency bias that crept into the choices of investors when they started their SIP.
Okay.
Now, if you are going to allow recency bias to give you a wrong choice, and then you're going to continue with the same choice for 2 years, the time you have invested doing that SIP is not going to fulfill your objectives. You will still be affected by how you chose the fund.
Right.
I feel that we are not doing this well enough.
Okay.
And earlier, let's say, if you take 2008-9, if you look at what mistake everyone did, the bulk of the SIP book shifted to thematic funds.
True.
If you go back to 2000 bull run and see what was the popular mistake in SIP, lot of money shifted into thematic funds. But from 2000 to 2008, the shift was much bigger. 2008 to 2024, it is much bigger. And if I take one middle point of 2018, again, the same mistake was done in small cap funds.
True.
So, with every market cycle, the size of the SIP book becomes much bigger. And on a bigger SIP book size, you are making the same mistakes.
That's very true what you're saying, because the latest mutual fund flows data from Amphi, in fact, tells the very same story. People have used the market dip to start their investments or to continue with their investments in a bigger way, which is good. But if you see what categories the flows have gone into, it is okay. One category is flexicap, which is good enough because it allows the fund manager to make his or her choices. But if you see the second and the third categories into which the fund flows have been maximum, it is the small and the mid cap categories. So we do know that investors have been a harried lot from September 2024, and the mid and small cap investors are looking for every opportunity to figure out whether there will be a repeat of what happened in the years prior. So do you really think that investors are making the right choices even today? They are unable to learn from the past, it looks like.
See, if you take small and mid cap SIP, assume that you have done a small and mid cap SIP from 2019 bottom. Let's say small cap SIP alone you take. Mid cap is also the same thing, but
Yeah.
19 bottom to 24 top.
Yeah.
Despite COVID will become a blip
Yes.
because it was barely there for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, it started rising.
Right?
A lot.
4 or 5 months, your market had reversed.
Yeah.
So you had a bottom to top SIP,
Yeah.
which gave you extraordinary 5-year returns.
Yeah.
Now, did this 5-year return come because of our intelligence, or did it come because of the liquidity that was sloshing all over the place, or did it come because of the concentration of liquidity in these two themes?
Yeah.
I think the last factor is the driver.
Okay.
Because the valuations of small and mid caps in 2024 at the peak looked clearly a risk to the category.
Yeah.
When the valuation of a category itself look risky, you have to stop your SIP, book your long-term profits and take your money out, pause and move your money to a safer category to run your SIP, and then come back when the valuations come back, return to your zone of comfort. Just blindly continuing it from a top to the next bottom is not a good strategy.
That's true, but ultimately
today's data
yeah.
tells you clearly that that strategy is still playing out.
True.
Right? Now, somebody can say, so what? Nothing. You want to do SIP from a market top to a market bottom, and you don't know when it will go back from that bottom to the next top. It's going to be a long, rough, painful ride. And you are not going to be rewarded for doing SIP in those wrong years.
Right.
You're not going to be rewarded. If somebody is doing from 2024 to 2027 SIP in small cap, I can tell you with good degree of confidence that they are not going to be rewarded in the subsequent cycle for this phase. They will only get the reward for 27 to the next bull market.
Right, right. Yeah, so what is happening is actually the whole concept of SIP starts getting questioned again and again when you see testing times in the markets. So it's very clear from what you're saying that SIP as a strategy is not wrong. Where you do the SIPs matter more, isn't it?
Now you are on the other side. Earlier in the media questioning the strategy, because I see this headline story in all the newspapers saying that your 2-year SIP is negative. Is SIP working out? A new journalists come and make the same old mistakes of writing this story, and I've been seeing this for more than 2 decades. They don't question how this happened. They just take the data, write an interpretation and write a conclusion. There is no inference, by the way. The inference is not of a good quality. And I'm saying this with responsibility that most of the mutual fund research that we see in our country has substandard inference, because you are not looking at where the money is going before you conclude on a method and the outcome. Right? In my opinion, if you do an SIP in the right place, there is no way your SIP will fail. I don't know why we as a community of stakeholders, because there are multiple stakeholders, it's not just the journalists. I'm not trying to single out a journalist. The manufacturers, the distributors, the media, and the investors. There are 4 major stakeholders. All 4 can figure this out quite easily. But what stops all 4 from, choosing the right path to deploy your capital and the right place to do your SIP is the very, very unshakable impact of recency bias. It's weighs so heavily on your head. When you are seeing 20% return in a small cap fund, all stakeholders find it easier to just blindly put the money there. That's true. Manufacturer finds it easy, distributor finds it easy, media finds it easy to recommend, investor finds it easy to buy. So the consensus, the way it is arrived, only shows me herd mentality. It's not showing anything else.
That's true.
And this herd is a comprehensive herd of all stakeholders. Now, this mistake, today it is happening in small cap and probably to some extent in mid cap and probably to a lesser extent in the flexi cap also, because flexi cap inevitably has 50-60% of small cap plus mid cap today. So if you are going to have 50-60% of small cap and mid cap as a component in your SIP, and the other 40% comprises large cap shares which are being sold by the FIIs continuously, then your flexi cap is also going to come under tremendous stress. But you put out a data point while you started this video that flexi cap has got better flows. So even now, if you look at it, in my opinion, money is not going to the right place. And I still reiterate that the problem is not the method of SIP. It is the way we make our choices.
Okay, even then, Shyam, the point here is that, if we have to be ready for a phase where the market is not going to go substantially up and it's going to go be a sideways market, even if a mutual fund investor makes the right choices for his or her SIP, the problem is that they may not see returns or very good returns as soon as they make it, maybe in 1, 2, or 3 years. So this again goes back to questioning of the strategy, because you've made the right investments, you've invested, you've started it in the right avenue. So how does an investor navigate, a SIP investor navigate such a sideways market?
Firstly, you are doing an SIP from January. Let's say your SIP is running from January of 2026. You are now in April. You have 3 months data. Your market fell some 14% in 3 months. Just see where your SIP is. If you have not fallen 14%, or if you have fallen only 5-6%, that is an indicator. In my opinion, in any portfolio, in a falling market or in a sideward market, not falling too much or falling less than the market itself is a positive signal. I would go one step further and say that if you fall very little, you are winning. Because when you avoid the drawdown, you get the confidence to do a little bit more in your investing. You may do some lump sums. You may add some incremental sums. You may step up your SIP. And then that money gets invested on even more favorable terms, at better valuations in your portfolio, helping you scale up during a phase when the market is not going anywhere. So that time also is your friend, where you can put in more money. And at the end of the time, let's say the market takes in all the negatives, consolidates, finishes that sideward movement, economy again gives the market confidence to go up. At that time, the market goes up by a certain amount, your portfolio will probably go up more than the market. Because first you have lost more. Market is regaining a part of the loss. You, in your SIP book, lost less. You will actually regain more than what the market regains during that recovery phase. This has to happen. This, in my opinion, is a very simple, doable playbook for every investor. Now, don't ask me why the entire ecosystem or the entire community of stakeholders is not doing this. I have no answer. Except that we are carrying the recency bias virus in our mind and body and soul all the time. In every market, we are having recency bias. And I think in India, recency bias is the biggest marketeer. Not finfluencer, not big fund manager, not media, not commissions. It is recency bias. So unless you cut the recency bias out and look at the future while making up your mind on SIP decisions, you are not going to get out of this rut. You are going to land again and again in this rut with every cycle in new funds, new choices, old mistakes.
I understand that. Shyam, so the other thing which keeps occurring in investor minds is a lot of them plan for their long-term goals, their financial goals, based only on mutual fund investments, SIP investments typically. Now, when you see this kind of a market where something or the other keeps beating it down, now questions arise as to whether they are doing the right thing by using mutual funds or SIPs as the vehicle towards long-term goals. So do these investors need to do anything more? Or, continuing with their SIPs in the right funds will take them there?
I think continuing a SIP in the right fund will definitely take you to where you want to go. There are few things which you cannot go wrong on. Your choice of funds, your duration, your timely exits, your reinvestment risk, and your asset allocation. Suddenly you can't take money from an SIP and buy a car. You can't take money out of a SIP and suddenly impulsively buy a house. You should purpose your money towards a goal, and you should not divert capital from the purpose. And you should not divert yourself from the goal. And you should act decisively when an investment has run to its full potential.
Mm.
If you do all this, winning in SIP will happen to almost every investor.
Mm.
I don't have any doubt.
Mm.
But it is not happening because people are not doing these things right.
Mm.
The cost of not doing these things
Mm.
is, in my opinion, far higher.
Mm.
And the cost of doing these things wrong
Mm.
is a very, very unbearable cost
Mm.
on every investor.
Mm.
If they can get the right support, the right handholding at a moderate cost, which is transparent, measurable,
Mm.
I think an investor should take that cost and still do the SIP in the right places.
Mm. Okay, that was a very interesting conversation with a lot of takeaways and points to ponder over for investors. You may agree with us, you may not agree with us, but we would like to hear from you definitely. So share your views and comments with us for sure. And thank you very much for listening in. Let's meet in the next episode. See you around.